Okay, then we'll have a change program. Now we'll listen to Annalena Baerbock, the President of the General Assembly. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear foreign ministers of Jordan, Spain, and Brazil, dear friends, good to see you again, Secretary General, dear Commissioner General, Excellencies. Food, shelter, education, healthcare. As we have heard and as we all know, for 76 years, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, has been a lifeline for millions. But as we also know, while the entire UN system is under strain, few agencies have been scrutinized as intensively as UNRWA. And what many of the critics have totally forgotten, that UNRWA, as my colleagues have said, is doing way, way more than just on what the focus is so rightly right on now. Before the war in Gaza, UNRWA was operating 183 schools, educating 300,000 children. In the West Bank, UNRWA provided services to more than 912,000 registered refugees. In Jordan, and I visited different sites there, UNRWA's 25 health centers provides 1.6 million consultations annually. In Lebanon, UNRWA is the sole basic service provider in 12 official refugee camps. And in Syria, where it operates 104 schools, UNRWA was able to sustain access to education for the vast majority of students, despite damage to 40% of schools from the conflict in Syria over years. But like the UN itself, UNRWA is under massive financial, political, and operational pressure. As of June 2025, UNRWA had no reserves and faced a funding shortfall of about $200 million. The agency is not only being stretched to the last dollar, but also confronted with mounting obstructions. Israeli authorities banned the agency from operating in East Jerusalem, ordered UNRWA to vacate premises, and closed several UNRWA schools, making also the situation in Israel itself, and especially in Jerusalem, more dangerous. As noted in the strategic assessment of UNRWA, commissioned by the Secretary General, as he highlighted, under the UNAIDS initiative, UNRWA has played an indispensable role in promoting regional stability, protecting refugee rights, and sustaining community resilience. Yes, we also know this specialized agency is not only part of the UNAIDS reform process, but there were also the investigations by the UN's Office for International Oversight Services and the Colonna report, and I would like to underline it because I know the discussion from back then very well. It's a strength of an organization to reflect on critics and scrutinize their own work. And we will hear in a minute again, the implementation of the Colonna report is going on, and it underlines again why this institution is not only needed more than ever, but also that it's capable of doing the reform the whole UN is doing. And we also all know UNRWA was supposed to work only temporarily, but now it fulfills state-like obligations for decades. Stopping its work would jeopardize the futures of more than 500,000 children who learn in UNRWA's over 700 schools. To starve UNRWA of funds and to obstruct its operations is to invite further destabilization in Gaza, the West Bank, and beyond. And also, stopping UNRWA now would mean that the future to build future Palestinian institution would become less likely, like the Foreign Minister of Jordan has said. Therefore, it was so important that in the resolution adopted last December, the vast majority of the General Assembly has reaffirmed the importance of its impeded operation and provisions of services for the well-being, protection, and human development of Palestinian refugees and for the stability of the region in whole. In the New York Declaration, which was just endorsed 2 weeks ago by 142 member states, they also underlined the indispensable role of UNRWA. They expressed their commitments to continue supporting it, including through the appropriate funding, and the agency to encourage it to implement its mandates and implement the recommendation of the Colonna report. We all know the situation in Gaza is just beyond words, as the Foreign Minister of Jordan underlined. I would also underline again what the Secretary General has said. 360 UNRWA personnel gave their life to protect others. They are suffering what Palestinian people are suffering. We know all the stories about the doctor treating children and then having to realize that her own boy was been transported to the hospitals. Since the collapse of the ceasefire on March 18, 2025, more than 1 million people have been displaced again in the Gaza Strip. We know the tragedy about the 18,000 children at least. And we know the tragedy, and if we would imagine these were our children wandering around in the rubbles of their destroyed homes without their parents searching for food, we would do everything to save them. So I would like to underline the call on all member states to do everything what we can do to fund UNRWA. It is good that member states came back for the funding. It was good that new member states came to the funds who didn't contribute it before. But we know also the numbers, and we're looking at the numbers. So all those who came back and all those who joined should commit now also for the upcoming months. Because it's very clear, if UNRWA collapses, the fragile hopes collapse as well. It would undermine the pursuit of a comprehensive, just and lasting resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, one based on international law, on the United Nations Charter, and the relevant resolutions. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict cannot be resolved by endless war and permanent occupation and recurrent terror. It will only end when both Israelis and Palestinians are able to live side by side in peace, security, dignity, and their own sovereign and independent states. A Palestinian state would mean also that UNRWA would not be needed any longer. But until that day, we should never stop working for the two-state solution and never stop supporting UNRWA. I thank you.
I thank Her Excellency the President, and now we